Hello everyone, it's Frank here once again, and today I'm walking through how to design a special online Bible studies poster in Photoshop, and this is coming up. So here in Photoshop, to create a new document, you go to File, New to create your new document, and I'm going to leave this paper size in inches, and then my width to 10, and then my height to 10.793. Okay, so 10.793. all right, and then I'll hit on create, and I will have this. All right, so Control 0 to adjust the whole thing to the center of the document. So the next thing to do is to add a solid color to this document. So I'll quickly jump to my notepad and then copy the color code for this particular document, and then I will now move to my color adjustment area and then make a paste from what I have copied from my notepad. So Control V to paste that. I'll hit on T to add a couple of text to this document. So I'll move to my notepad and then start with the Bible study. So I'll copy this, Control C to copy the whole thing, and then left click, and then Control V to paste what I've been copied already. So I'll have this there, Control A, select everything, and then open up my toggle character, and then make sure there is much space between my text like this. All right, so I'll copy the studies like this. So Control C, the whole thing has been copied, and then accept the whole thing in Photoshop like this. So Control T to make a little bit of transformations to this. All right, so I'll hit on enter to accept the whole thing in Photoshop. All right, so it is time for me to set my rulers to this. So I have one here, and then I'll have the next one here as well. Okay, so hold on Alt, left click, and then drag this there, and then hit on T again, Control A, select everything, and then Control V, and then make a paste for what has been copied. But in this case, the S is missing, so I accept the whole thing in Photoshop, and then Control T to again make a transformations to this, and then I'll come back here and then drag this one here like this, and then hit on enter. Use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing on top like this. So Control T again to make an adjustment or a little bit of transformations to this. All right, so this is exactly what I want. All right, so I'll right click on my first layer and then move to the blending options to add a couple of stars or a gradient overlay to this. All right, so I'll click on my gradient overlay and then select the colors here already. I promise you guys to leave the color codes in the description for you guys to follow suit. All right, so I'll hit on OK, and then the next thing to do is to go to my Bevel and Emboss. So I'll only open the whole thing up like this, and then make sure to set my size to 1. All right, and then I'll move to my gradient or my shadow option, and then drop this shadow there, and then make sure to set the opacity to something low like this, and then hit on OK. All right, so right click on the same layer to copy the layer style, and then I'll go back to my studies layer and then paste the layer style there. All right, so the next thing to do is to go back to my resources or my notepad and then add this. So copy the whole thing like this, and then Control C to copy it, and then hit on T to activate your text tool again, and then Control V to paste the whole thing. Control A, select everything, and then go for a font called Railway. All right, so going for a font called Railway, but in this case I'm going to leave the whole thing in caps like this, and then accept the whole thing in Photoshop. All right, so hit on V to activate your move tool, Control T, and then make an adjustment to this like that. Hit on enter, and then drag the whole thing there. So Control T again to add a little bit of transformations to that. Hit on enter, and then Control T again to have this there like that. All right, so I'll be having this there. Use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing on top like this. Okay, hit on T again to select only this part, and then change the color from white to something yellowish like this. All right, so hit on OK, and then accept the whole thing in Photoshop. Okay, so now go back to my notepad and then add the topic for this particular poster. So copy the topic, Control C to copy the whole thing, hit on T and then left click like this and Control V to paste the whole thing like this. Alright, so Control A, select everything and then change the color to white, hit on OK like this. Alright, so in this case I'll only copy the fade toward what. Okay, so Control A, select everything and then copy that one alone and then I will delete it. Alright, I save the whole thing in Photoshop, Control T to make a transformation to the topic here like this. Alright, so I save the whole thing in Photoshop and then I'll drag the whole thing on top like this. Alright, then I'll add a very nice rectangle to this. So I'll draw a very nice rectangle here like this. So I only have to take my time when I'm drawing all these stuffs there. Alright, so I'll draw this very nice rectangle there and then make sure to change the color from stroke to a white color. So I'll maintain this white color there like this. Okay, then I'll now move to my move tool. So Control J to make a duplicate of the rectangle drawn, then use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing toward my topic like this. Alright, so I'll go back to my topic layer, hold on Alt, left click and then drag the whole thing here, hit on T, so Control A and then Control V to paste your topic. Alright, so you'll be having this, hit on T again and then make sure the colon has been deleted. Alright, so accept the whole thing in Photoshop like this. Alright, so Control T to make a transformation to that. So I'll be having this there like this, hit on enter and then I'll be having this, Control T again to make a little bit of transformation to it, something like this, and then use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing on top like that. Alright, so hit on T again and then make sure your fade has been changed from white to something yellow like this and then hit on OK. Alright, so the next thing to do is to go for my rounded rectangle to draw a very nice rounded rectangle here. So I will have to draw a very nice rounded rectangle here like this. Alright, and then I'll go for a whitish color for this rectangle. So I'll cancel the stroke and then go for a white color like this. Alright, so right click on it and then rasterize the whole layer and then I'll go for my rectangular marker tool and then make sure to delete some places that I don't want. So I want to delete all this part. So Control D to deselect and then drag the whole thing on top like this. Okay, so I'll be having this here. Use my arrow keys to make sure the whole thing has been positioned very well. Control J to make a duplicate and then drag the whole thing to this edge like this. Alright, so that is where I'll put in my time and my date too as well. Okay, so the next thing to do is to make sure that I will transform both my rounded rectangle and the copied rounded rectangle as well. So Control T and then I will make a little bit of transformations to it, something like this, and then I'll hit on enter. Alright, so I'll go for the copied one and then use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing just to fit my document, something like this. Okay, alright, so Control T again to still make a little bit of adjustment to that. So a little bit of adjustment, so enter and I'll have this and then I'll still go for the copied one and then use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing here like that. So I will again move to my notepad and then add the date for this particular program. So this is the date, so Control C, copy the whole thing and then hit on T and then I will left click and then Control V to paste the whole thing. Control A, select everything and then I'll go for a font called Orula. So I am using Orula for the date and then make sure to change the color from white to this background color. Alright, so I will drag the whole thing on top of my first rounded rectangle. Alright, so hit on T again and then make sure to transform the whole thing very well. Drag the whole thing on top like this and then make sure the space in between them has been a little bit closed. Alright, you have this. Accept the whole thing in Photoshop like this and then Control T to make a transformations to that. Hit on enter and then use your arrow keys to make sure the whole thing has been positioned very well. Alright, so Control J, or better still, hold on Alt, left click and then drag this here like that, and then make sure to select everything and then go for 09. Alright, so PM. So this is actually the time for this particular program. So I'll drag the whole thing here like this and then make sure the 9 PM is at the middle of the PM. So we'll be having this. Alright, so this is exactly what I wanted. Alright, so I'll still add a bit of rectangles to this. So I'll draw a very nice rectangle here and then make sure the color is changed from stroke to a yellowish color. So I'll maintain this color here like this, or better still, I can still hit on this and then go for the thick yellow color like this. Alright, accept the whole thing in Photoshop and then make sure I'll close this panel. So let's still move back to my notepad and then still add a couple of text to this. So I'll copy this one, Control C to copy the whole thing, hit on T to activate your text tool and then left click to paste what I've been copied from your notepad. Alright, so I only copy this part like this and then delete it. Alright, so I will just make sure that the whole thing has been aligned with my ruler. Alright, so Control T to make a transformation to that. So I'll be having this there. Alright, so use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing just to fit my document like this. Alright, so drag the whole thing here. Alright, so still hold on Alt, left click and then drag this here. Alright, so hit on T, Control A, select everything and then Control V to paste this there. Alright, so accept the whole thing in Photoshop and then Control T to make an adjustment to this there like that. Hit on enter and then use your arrow keys to drag the whole thing on top like this. Alright, so hold on the two layers and then make sure you position them very well. Alright, so let's still go back to our notepad and then go for the venue for this particular poster. Control C, copy the whole thing, hit on T and then left click and then Control V to paste the whole thing. Control A, select everything and then change the font to all ruler. Alright, and then make sure you change the color to the full background color and then accept the whole thing in Photoshop like this. Alright, so Control T to still make an adjustment to that, something like this. Alright, hit on enter and then Control A and then make sure the whole thing has been centered. Alright, so Control D to deselect everything like this. Alright, so Control J and then make a duplicate for this. Alright, so hit on T again, Control A, select everything and then go back to my resources and then go for don't miss this particular program. I'm telling you guys, don't miss this program. Alright, so Control V and then I will make a paste from that. Alright, Control A and then make sure the whole thing has been centered and then Control D to deselect. Alright, so let's add a couple of rounded rectangle to this. So I'll draw a very nice rounded rectangle here like that and then I'll go for a reddish color for this particular rounded rectangle. Alright, so I'll open this up and then move this to my red color like this and then hit on OK and then I will accept the whole thing in Photoshop like this. Alright, hit on T again and then just type FG, Control A, select everything and then change the color to white. Hit on OK and then drag the whole thing on top of the rounded rectangle drawn. Alright, so accept the whole thing in Photoshop like this. Okay, alright, so I'll still go back to my resources and then add the name of the church and then everything. Alright, Control C, copy the whole thing and then hit on T again and then left click and then Control V to paste the whole thing like that. But in this case, we are going for a font called Railway. Alright, so change the font from Orula to a font called Railway like this and then make sure you change the size to bold. Alright, so I'll copy the present like this the present with the evangelistic ministry, and then copy it, delete the whole thing. All right, and then Control T to make an adjustment to only the Christ the Savior. All right, so I'll have this there like that. All right, hit on enter, and then use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing here. So Control T, and then make an adjustment to this there like that. All right, so come to this edge and then hit on enter. You'll be having this there like this. All right, so Control J to make a duplicate, and then drag the whole thing down like this, and then hit on T. Control A, select everything, and then Control V to paste the copied one. So we'll be having this there like that. All right, so Control C, and then I'll accept the whole thing in Photoshop like this. Okay, and then Control T to make a transformation to this one there. All right, hit on enter, use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing on top like this. Okay, so the final thing to do is to paste the present to as well. So Control V to paste my present, but in this case I want this part to be in small letters, so I'll only click on this one like this, and then I'll have a font called Bernhard Function. So I'll have a font called Bernhard Function, and then I'll go for that font. It's a very nice and beautiful font. Okay, so I'll have this one here like this, and then I'll drag it here like that. Or Control A, and then make sure it is centered. No, it will not work in this case. So Control D, use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing here like that. Okay, so let's add the logo of this church to this particular poster. So I'll come back to my resources, drag and drop this very nice logo in Photoshop, and then make sure the whole thing is transformed to something small. Hit on enter to accept the whole thing in Photoshop. Control T again to make a transformation to that, and then hit on enter. Use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing near my the name of the church. Or I'll be having this. I'll still go back to my resources and then add the image of the one ministry. So I will drag and drop this in Photoshop like this. Okay, and then make sure to make an adjustment or a transformation to that. Hit on enter, and then I'll drag the whole thing here like this. Okay, so we'll be having this. All right, so I'll drag the whole thing to my color code area. So I'll be having this there like that. Okay, beautiful. All right, so the final thing to do is to add the background images and stuffs to this. All right, so I'll drag and drop this very nice image I have grabbed from Google into Photoshop like this. Okay, and then make sure to make an adjustment or a transformation to the whole thing. Hit on enter, and then I'll have this there like that. Okay, right click on it, and then rasterize the whole layer, and then add a layer mask to it. Hit on G to go for your gradient tool, and then make sure to change the color to something like this, and then hit on OK. Clean all these places that I don't need. So I don't actually need all these places. All right, so this is exactly what I'll be doing for now. Hit on B, and then I'll clean all these places like that. All right, and then go back to my my color adjustment area, and then make sure this is changed to luminosity. I'll be having this there. Hit on T to make a little bit of transformations to this. So I'll be having this there like that. Hit on enter. Use my arrow keys to drag the whole thing here like that. All right, so Control J, make a duplicate, and then drag the whole thing here like this. All right, so I'll be having this there like that. All right, so still hit on G, and then wipe off all these places that you don't need. Control Z to undo, and then I'll wipe all these places that I don't need. So I don't actually need all these places. Something like this is perfect. All right, so let's go back to my resources and then add this very nice stadium I've also grabbed from iStock. So I'll drag and drop the whole thing in Photoshop like this, but I only need this part. So hit on enter, right click, and then rasterize the layer, and then add a layer mask to the whole thing. Hit on G, and then wipe off the places that you don't need. So we don't actually need all these places. All right, so I don't actually need all these places, and then I have to set that one to luminosity, and then I'm having this. Hit on B to activate your brush tool, and then make sure you brush off all these places that you don't need. All these places are not needed. All right, let's still go back to our resources and then add a lens flare to this project. So I'll drag and drop this very nice lens flare to this project. Hit on OK or enter, drag the whole thing on top of all the layers, and then I'll have this there, and then set this to screen. I'll be having this there, and then I'll drag one here like this. Control J, make a duplicate, and then drag the next one here like that. All right, so I'll still go back to my color adjustment area and then add a curve to this document. So I have to drag this here like this. The whole thing looks so pale. All right, so I'll be having this there. All right, I think this is what I've shown you guys on the thumbnail. All right, I can still add a little bit of gradient to my rounded rectangle. So drop a shadow for this rectangle. So I'll be having this there, and then I'll just make sure the whole thing is set to normal, and then increase the size like this, and then I hit on OK. All right, I want to thank you all for having time with me for this particular tutorial, and I want to say may God richly bless you all, and I am out.